So, is this our last episode for season 1?
Yes, last episode for season 1.
OMG. I'm Allie.
I'm Kayla, and this is
Unofficial
Unofficial
HR.
HR.
Today we'll be discussing green flags and what that looks like, whether you're looking for a job or you're in a work environment, and what that looks like for you if you've had a positive work experience. So we'll be sharing stories like that.
Yeah, so
I'll give you the best example. The best job I ever had, and it was right off of nursing school. Green flag wise, like the interviewing process with that. Have you ever gone to, it's like an in-person, you can just drop in and do an active interview that day type of thing.
It's kind of like a job fair, but just for
Yes,
that company.
just for that company.
Okay.
So that's how I even came across it. And then talked to the recruiter there first. She showed me around the whole like place, which was super cool. She couldn't take me into the units or anything at the hospital because I wasn't cleared, but she was like, you know what? Let me see if I can talk to one of the hiring managers. So the hiring manager comes down, makes time for me during his busy day. He sat down with me in the cafeteria and we just talked, because when you're working in like a psych hospital, you have to be serious about a lot of things, like whether or not you can handle this kind of environment. Do you understand like fight, flight, or freeze? Do you understand those things about people? Can you be patient with people? Can you handle people putting their hands on you and understanding that there's something psychologically wrong with them?
Yeah.
Like shit like that. And like we talked for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, because he was very thorough about like, okay, you say you want to do psych, but are you sure?
Yeah.
It took him about like, I think a couple of days to reach back out to me, and he hired me, which was like amazing. So that's a green flag. Like he took his time. He was very thorough about his questions, which actually made me more confident about what I'm getting myself into in that work environment. And he also took me around to each of the units. And so there's like a charge nurse in each unit. So he would assign me to a charge nurse at each unit to see which one I fit the best in before I made my decision whether or not I wanted to work for the company. And I spent like an hour at each unit. Like I did like extended acute unit, I did the acute unit, and then I did child and adolescent. So from that experience, then I got to choose like I want to work in the extended acute unit. And I'm so glad because I got to meet the people that work there. I got to see somewhat of the process and how it works. I got to meet the charge nurse who would be assigned to me to train me. Like the level of confidence going into that job, so organized. And then even with the onboarding process, like these are other green flags, like onboarding process, the paperwork and stuff, it was in person, but it had to be in person because they also go through like 3 weeks of training. They actually stage themselves as patients and do skits. Like this one person, the way she was acting and stuff was very much like, you've been doing psych like your whole life. They teach you how to protect yourself. Like they want you to get as comfortable before you go in. They teach you about the walkies. They teach you about safety. They teach you about restraints. Like those are all green flags. And the biggest one was communication and how to get yourself out of a unsafe environment.
Yeah.
For both yourself and the patient. Like it's not like that everywhere you go for medical, if I'm being completely honest.
For any company, I would say it's not. Like the level of care and passion that manager seems to have for the work and like being willing to sit down with you for that time. Like I think that says a lot about how any employee under him would be treated, and like the care for the safety and the quality of the employees, obviously. I also like how the first person you spoke to or whatever didn't just walk you through the units. Like she was respectful of like, we have these protocols in place. We can't just walk you into here. Like I think a demonstration of boundaries and respect for a certain procedure can also be good because it means that things are organized enough that, you know, not just anyone can walk in. And like, I don't know, like it would have been a huge red flag if she was like, well, we're not supposed to do this, but I'll let you in. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not great. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds really good. And the fact that they do training that's that extensive, I think is pretty rare in
Oh,
what I've
it's
seen.
so thorough, and my expectations moving forward after with every psych job
Hmm.
that I apply for, I expect those things. Like,
Doesn't that fuck you up a little bit?
it fucked me up so bad.
Yeah.
Like, Kayla, I got interviewed at a place when we moved here. They wanted to hire me, but the interview process with that one in itself was so red flag. Like, the lady literally told me, okay, well, just so you know, you're going to be looked at more, if that makes sense. Because,
You're gonna be harassed.
yes, because
Yeah.
of what I look like and my
Because you're a
positioning.
female.
Yes, because I'm a female and I'm so in the medical world, there's a level of trust, right?
Hmm.
And in the ethnic side of things, sometimes ethnicities cross, and there's just certain ethnicities who don't have that level of trust with other ethnicities. Does that make sense?
People kind of prefer certain races or ethnicities, probably dependent on their own personal experiences, which I can't say I experienced, but yeah.
Like, I get it. I already knew I was gonna be a fucking like sore thumb. You know what I mean? Like, I was fine with that, but it was how it was told in the interview in itself.
Oh, like you need to be aware that this will probably come up.
Yes,
Yeah, that could be a little uncomfortable. Was it the fact that you're Hispanic or was it the fact that she thought you were white?
both.
Ah.
Because the way I talk and I have,
Mhm.
little highlights and stuff like that, like I present myself like a little white girl,
I
but
wouldn't say you present yourself. You're just you.
thank
And a
you.
lot of people look at you and just assume, but I mean, whatever. Honestly, it's not their business. You're still who you are,
Right.
like,
And that
no matter
was
what someone's ethnicity is.
a red flag in itself during the interview
Yeah.
process. And then another thing was she also told me I'm an LPN. And that's a taboo or a stigma in itself
Hmm.
because of, I think we talked about this, how certain hospitals have a certain like scale.
Yeah, like the credentialing system or something. And for some
Yeah.
reason, LPNs are looked down on sometimes by other professionals.
Yes. And she told me, she's like, you just have to, hold yourself up if you're going to work in a place like this. The
Hmm.
unit in itself in the hospital, there's two units, and there was one security guard.
Oh.
And another red flag with that was they didn't even have walkies to communicate. So not only I'm going to put myself in a position where I'm already going to be told I'm going to be a target, but I don't have a way to keep myself safe. And also, I might have some issues with some coworkers because of my title and
Hmm.
what I look like.
Yeah.
So, but the pay was nice.
Hmm.
And I was like, I don't think it's worth it. I
Yeah.
don't think my safety is worth it at all. Like, if there's no safety precaution, like that was it for me. Like, the only way I could ask for help was there's this pin you can get and you
Hmm.
pull it and it makes a noise. And
Hmm.
that's how somebody could help you and find you.
Okay.
That did not give me any kind of confidence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm like, as long as you guys have my back, I'm cool. But if you're telling me all these things and you're only going to give me a pin and I have to pull it and hope and pray somebody comes and gets me, someone's going to
Yeah.
fuck me up. Like, also the constant rotation of patients coming in and out. It was like every 14 days, same patients coming in and out. I
Hmm.
didn't like that. I asked them questions about that, and there's just no solid like rehabilitation for people, and I didn't
Hmm.
agree with that morally. Like, I want to work for a company that helps people and at least see some kind of percentage or progression, or work around other people who really just want to help those psych patients be better for themselves.
Yeah. A lot of red flags. I don't think you were wrong to pass on that one. So it
Yeah,
sounds like it would have been pretty chaotic.
that one's like a hard like topic too in itself, because I didn't know there were social stigmas when it came to even like the LPN thing. That was a shock factor for me, but I already knew about, ethnicity and stuff like that, and like we learned it in nursing school, like that you're going to come across patients who have trust issues.
Hmm.
with certain ethnicities. It's nothing new. I don't know if you've ever known that or not.
No, because I'm white. Like,
Yeah, it's still a thing in the medical field to build that level of trust with people, especially in a psych environment and stuff. If somebody was physically hurt by somebody who was like my ethnicity, and like, there's that stigma of like, oh, well, you're going to do it to me because you're this skin color, whatever, whatever. Like,
hmm. I'm sure like it also doesn't help that like people with those preconceived notions or prejudices or whatever, they're also in a hospital or psych ward or wherever, like,
oh,
so they're
yeah.
probably like angry, trying to say hurtful shit depending on the circumstances.
Like,
Like,
I had a lady, like, for my first job ever, like, I was trapped inside my little med room. I
hmm.
locked that door as tight as I could, and she was like, come on, white bitch, get out of here,
My
white
God.
bitch. And I was like, oh my God, I'm about to die today.
You're
Today's the
like, do
day.
I tell her I'm not fully white? Like,
Oh
what?
no, I was bursting out my Spanish music. The thing is, she was extremely like psychotic. Like, oh, and
Yeah.
when she's not on her meds,
Hmm.
she goes into this psychosis. I don't know who hurt her back then, but the funny part is she was actually one of the people that made me a card to say goodbye to me when I left. And I'm like, God, man, you put me through a roller coaster. Like, talk about whiplash. Like, she was
Yeah.
one of my favorite patients, but man, holy moly. But yeah, green flag wise, I had a lot of high expectations after that first job when it came to
Mm.
like safety and stuff. Like, and then to go and experience that after, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? But to just help you understand that from your perspective, you do understand it. And I say that because, like, discussing about finding a male or female doctor,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
that kind of discomfort. That's kind of like where I put myself in that position when it comes to people and they don't trust a certain like ethnicity. Same rule applies when it comes to even a
Mhm.
gender. I've had really bad experiences with male doctors when I was active duty in the military, and I kept getting falsely diagnosed with different things until my therapist helped me
Mm.
figure shit out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. You are choosing to, I think, have a little bit more empathy for the ethnicity and race preferences of certain patients, and you're seeing that as just a characteristic preference in general. Just like
Yeah.
someone might say, oh, I would rather have a healthcare professional who's a male or woman, or oh, I might rather have a healthcare professional who is from my state versus another
Yeah.
state. Like, I think that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to talk about these days, too. I feel like race and ethnicity is such a massive topic. And for someone to be like, I don't want this Hispanic nurse, that sounds incredibly racist. And I think it's very kind and empathetic to be like,
But also presents as white and valley girl. Like, it's like that struggle of being like a mixed kid. It's so
mhm.
hard, man. It's so hard.
I hear a lot of people talk about that, like mixed people just saying like they feel like they don't fit in either or. And I don't know. I guess for me, like hearing you talk about it is a reminder that like you never know somebody else's story and you like shouldn't judge them. Like you never know what someone else is going through, what their background is, like
Right.
whether they appear a certain way and, their story is completely different. You should just not assume things.
And it's just like I would have totally gotten that job if I just again felt like at least my coworkers could have my back. You know?
Yeah. I think that's the big thing. It's not even just the patients. It's like, okay, so you're already working in healthcare. You know it's going to be chaos and it's a very hard industry anyway. And then on top of it, your coworkers are gonna what, be trying to fight you
Target
because
me or not even try to friend me because they're like, well, I have nothing in common with this girl. Like, and it's going to be like, okay, well, I guess,
yeah.
I'm on my own. Like, I feel like it goes with every work environment. Like, there is some team aspect you
Hmm.
need in order
Yeah.
for a job in itself to function
Hmm.
smoothly.
Yeah,
And,
unless you're like a sole business owner doing everything yourself, like
yeah,
every position relies on someone else to do something to some extent.
So I'd say a green flag in a work environment that I've experienced would be great teamwork and
Mhm.
great communication. Like level of trust is such a big thing. And it's not even fake trust. Like there's no forced upon like we're family, but it's just the level of caring and checking in on one another.
Mhm.
Like, hey, you don't seem like yourself right now. Like I had those green flags sometimes at my work environment where they're like, hey, you seem a little bit like you're kind of burnt out right now. Do you just want to take an extended like time to go to the cafeteria and get yourself a snack? Like you've been here for 14 hours, you need to take a break.
Mhm.
Like I've seen that and I'm just like, wow, you have to pay attention to each other. You have to
Yeah.
in order to make it work.
I think that is such a good mindset to have in a work environment. I feel like it has to really come from the top, like from that manager that you spoke to at that job. In terms of green flags, I worked somewhere that we had a very long onboarding training period. I think the full training was like 3 months, and you were doing like basically your job by the end of the first week, 2 weeks, but you were still on a progression track to like keep learning and be fully independent and do everything exactly the way they wanted you to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very highly structured. And that was nice. But then, kind of the same thing when I got out of that company, no other company has been that thorough that I've
Yeah.
been at since. And now I kind of understand, oh, that was the exception, not to expect a real thorough training from anywhere else. I think anytime that I'm looking for a job or interviewing with people, and I will ask them, like, what does starting in this role look like? If they mention, like, oh, well, we ideally would have you like ramp up to being fully self-sufficient over a period of like a couple weeks or whatever. I'm like, awesome, great. Like, there's something, I'm here for it. Like, I can
Right.
do that. I know I can do that. If you're like,
And they
oh,
were very
well,
clear and just like they just answered very quickly too, I'm
yeah,
guessing.
like
Yeah.
you can tell they're not thinking and trying to make up, like, oh,
Yeah.
well, we have kind of a informal approach to train. Like, you can tell they're like
Like,
wordsmithing.
are they
We don't have a
bullshitting
training
me or
program.
if they're
Yeah.
being honest with me?
Yes. And some people also just be like, oh, well, we don't have formal training. We just, prefer to have employees like hit the ground running. I'm like, okay, like I don't love that. Like I can do that. I've done that. It's really, really stressful, and you're not going to get the best thing out of me because no one is telling me how this is done. But again, you can decide what you're looking for in the moment, I guess, if you're willing to do that versus not, depending on the pay.
Mm-hmm.
But even just, I think, listing a pay range in general, at least in the corporate world, that's also a green flag because it shows like a level of transparency and like, here's what we're targeting for
Yeah.
whoever is applying. I fucking cannot stand these companies that don't list any kind of pay range. They take up your time with like the application process and you get into an interview and they're like, "Oh my God, you're great. Like, oh, you'd be such a good fit for this. Like, oh, what are your salary expectations?" And you tell them and they're like, "Oh, we're not anywhere near close to that." And I'm like, well, you could have saved me all this trouble by just listing a range so that I would know, okay, we're not on the same page because it's also like poor interview etiquette to right off the bat be like, hey, by the way, this is the salary I want.
I agree.
So,
I agree. It frustrates me when you're going through like just even looking for a job and how some jobs don't even tell you how much they're going to
not
pay
even a
you.
ballpark estimate.
Nope. And they won't even tell you until you get to like interview two
Hmm.
sometimes, but you have to tactfully ask, like, what's my
Yeah.
pay going to look like without being too much of an asshole? And it's like, especially as a woman, I feel like it's hard. It's hard to negotiate as a woman. It really is. First of all, it's uncomfortable. Second of all, I just want to make this money. So how am I going to do it?
Yeah. I think it's dumb that everyone who has a job has to act like they're not in it to get paid.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
That is the whole reason we work.
yeah, we have certain lifestyles we're trying to maintain.
We're
And if
trying to
you,
eat.
yeah, like, fuck, man, like, can you pay for my fucking gas?
But we have to be like, oh no, I'm really passionate about selling produce.
Oh my God. And then they would get pissed off if you were low key working a second job on top of it because they're like, well, why are you working so much? It's like, because you're not paying me
Yeah.
enough.
because you don't pay me more. It's even the same thing for like blue collar jobs. Like even when you're applying to work at like a grocery store or a waitressing position, they still have questions in the interview process that'll be like, why do you want to work here? And you can't be like, I think I would make good money. You have to be like, oh, I really enjoy working with people. Oh, I've come here a bunch of times and I really like the
You
aesthetic and
really
the
have to
customer service.
bullshit your answer.
You do until you finally get someone to be like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll hire you. And then you still kind of have to keep up the act, but at least you're getting paid for it then.
I
Like
feel like we need to talk about office politics at some point.
some people are really like boyfriend is very good at office politics because he
Mhm.
has a good poker face.
Yeah,
I do not.
I don't.
No, me either. Which is why working remotely helps because if I'm
Yes.
pissed, I can just be pissed in my room and no one can see me. Pre-hiring process. Green flags that I've seen at a couple different companies are like having really good benefits, obviously, is like a
Oh
nice
yeah.
green flag and sticking to it. Because I know we talked before about like I did work at a company that had unlimited PTO, but I would say that was not a green flag because it wasn't real. Like it was
Yeah.
quote unquote unlimited PTO, but you were kind of expected to be checking in all the time anyway. And oh, I'm sorry, you're on vacation with your family at Disney World. Well, we need you to deal with this problem like right now because XYZ. Like that's not okay.
I will say, like, green flag wise, when it comes to PTO and stuff for my first ever job, that was a big green flag for me because I told them in advance about like how I have a long distance relationship with somebody who's in the military.
Mhm.
And off the bat, my nurse manager, she was so helpful in a sense of like when I needed to communicate about like, hey, like how much in advance do you need me to tell you about these things? And she's like, just tell me now and put it in and we'll work through it. Like anything you have going on while you're doing your onboarding process, just put it in and we'll just
Mhm.
accept it. And I'm just like,
Nice.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And she did it in email. She
Mhm.
communicated to me verbally as well as text message as well with
Yeah.
no issues.
Get those receipts.
Yeah, but she was hounding me if anything like, "Hey, did you make sure you did this and you did this?" It's like, "Yes, I got that done. Thank you so much for understanding." Because they want you to use your pay time off because again, when you work in psych, you get burnt the fuck out.
Yeah. And it's nice to know that like healthcare or otherwise, like the places do actually care, like, hey, use up your time off. We're not trying to.
Kayla, my expectations after this
I
job
can
was
see.
so
Yeah,
I
I
felt like
understand.
I was gaslit at that point, or I don't know, I was in a fucking mirage. I couldn't even tell you, like, no other company worked that way. And my expectation after was just complete shock, like
Hmm. Yeah.
completely shocked. But I think it also depends on the state you live in. Like, I don't know, in
Hmm.
Pennsylvania, I'd say they do a pretty decent job at helping people when it comes to nonprofits, from my experience
Hmm.
anyway. But then you go to other states, and every place, depending on funding, works differently. So just be mindful of where the funding is going to.
One of the nicest like green flag employee health benefits I've come across, and I came across it in two different job interviews that I didn't get, sadly, but they had super flexible work weeks or like shortened work weeks. Like the work week was 38 hours a week at this one company.
Oh,
That's
wow.
full-time employee, full benefits, full everything. No, you're not going to work 40. You can work 38 hours a week. And
Mhm.
like, that's cool. Another one, they just had a super flexible schedule where it was you could do 4 10s for a week if
Nice.
you wanted, or you could do like a full week and then like take a day off the next week or something like that. Like they were super flexible
Oh,
with the work day. And like
the
the
luxury.
fact, I can't believe that in this day and age, it's still so hard to find a bank or a doctor or whatever that is open on a Saturday versus
Yeah.
standard working hours when you know everyone else has to work too. So then you
Oh,
have to put in all these requests to like, I got to go to this appointment. I have to go to this appointment. And like you have to get your shit taken care of.
yeah.
But the flexibility of being like, no, you can have a day a week off to just like, I would just dump all my appointments on that day if I could. It would be so nice.
So nice. I think the PTO concept in my head is just like I was so used to working in like the serving industry, right? I don't know. fucking like Victoria's Secret or something. And there weren't certain hours you had to make. You just find people to cover your shifts. And if you
Yeah.
couldn't work that shift, then you just find, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm. The
there's never,
managers weren't micromanaging your hours. It was, is
yeah,
someone here to do this? Okay, cool.
I was used to that concept. So I thought going into like even like in the medical field, it would kind of be like similar. I don't know why I thought that way. I knew nothing was going to be the same as the military. Like I'm not that naive, but I really thought civilian sector wise, that's still how things worked.
I mean, you'll just keep learning that even companies that have a similar kind of PTO policy, they're still different because they'll all treat it differently because there's no standard legal way, I guess, that they have to really do that. Like, I've worked places that do the same thing, like every hour that you're not working, that you're supposed to
Hmm.
be working, okay, that's an hour of PTO you get taken away now. I've
Yeah.
worked other places that you have a set amount of PTO, but nobody's really tracking that. And it's kind of just a verbal understanding that I'm going to take time off for some appointments and I'll let you know. And okay, I'm planning on taking vacation this week. Okay. And it's just very like,
Is there maybe
eh.
from your legal experience,
Well,
can you,
I work in a legal industry, but let's be clear, I'm not a lawyer.
you are not a lawyer, but from any knowledge that you've retained from that job, is that the right word?
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
Like if you are sick and stuff like that, can somebody take your job away? Or if you have like medical appointments and stuff like that that you need to get to, is there certain like amount of medical appointments that you're limited to before they think about letting you go? Can you get fired from that? Is that illegal or is it legal?
I have no idea if it's legal or illegal, just based on personal experience.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like one of those taboo questions, but I'm always curious about it because my past experiences with people that I've worked with, they would not be at work, which felt like a lot of the time due to
Hmm.
medical problems. I
Hmm.
can't front somebody for that. I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, like, because I'm always having this level of anxiety because of the military, like, never going to
Hmm.
freaking medical to take care of myself and having that threat of, like, you're going to get kicked out or
Yeah.
like,
I think it's hard to say one way or the other if you can do that or can't do that because, again, every single company treats it differently.
yeah.
So it all just comes down to like the vibe and what the person in charge is going to think. Like
So
some
everyone has
places
their
don't
own
even,
protocol for that.
everyone has their own protocol. Some companies give you sick days, other companies don't. And
Yeah.
it's just part of your PTO, and you're expected to save a day or two in case you get sick. I've seen other places that give PTO and then have unlimited sick days. And
Hmm.
so if you're sick, then apparently that's fine. If you're calling out all the time for doctor's appointments and stuff like that, I mean, it's just going to depend on like the relationship you have probably with your manager and like, are you still getting your stuff done that you're supposed to be doing? Then they're probably more
Damn.
likely. But it's frustrating because unlike the military, which
Hmm.
I see boyfriend deal with all the time, and I'm like, wow, it's so nice that there's a clear-cut rule for, oh, this is how you're supposed to handle this situation. You need to go to
Yeah.
medical. Okay, this is what, whatever. Here, there's like no rules. It's just like the guy paying you is the same person who put all the rules in the company handbook.
And
So,
are they bullshitting you? Are
and
they
are they
threatening
bullshitting
to,
you?
yeah. Are they taking your job away? Are they threatening your job? Like, is that legal? Can they do that?
They can if it's at will, because again, all they have to do,
Or is it seen as discrimination?
that's the tricky thing, I think, with workplace discrimination cases. So, like, I don't know
Yeah.
anything about that. Like, I really don't, but I know what at will employment is. And I know that it could be a very, very fine line from someone firing me because they think I look like a dumb slut and firing me because they don't think I'm meeting expectations. It's just their word. Like they can fire me for turning down a sexual advance and mask it as something else. That's why you have to be able to like prove
All
that
the
something fucked
things.
up happened. That's why I'm always like, get that shit in writing
Yep.
because it's only going to come down to like, if you're being mistreated at work and you get fired because you're just expecting to be treated fairly,
Hmm.
you're not going to have any way to prove that if every call and conversation is happening over the phone versus some kind of written documentation of someone telling you to do something fucked up.
You need to have your receipts,
You
all
do.
the receipts.
Because if someone tells you to do something like against procedure, do something incorrectly, and someone gets hurt or something super fucked up
Yeah.
happens, and now you're on the hook for it,
Yep.
and you don't have communication showing why you did that, you're fucked.
Yep. And that was the biggest reason why I left my last job. Poor communication and just not solid protocols at all.
It was like your
Like,
first remote job. So I think
yeah.
again, it's that whole, you get into that mindset of like, oh, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the one expecting something unrealistic here. Maybe
Yeah.
this is just how it is with remote jobs or tech jobs or whatever the case may be. You kind of like gaslight yourself into being like, am I fucked up for thinking this way? And some of it I think comes with age too. Like the
Mm-hmm.
older you get and the more bullshit experiences you have, then when you have them again, you're like, oh, no, no. Someone has done this to me before, and now I know that they got me fucked up. So I'm not going to put
It's,
up with this again.
it's kind of like that common answer that we get as adults. No one knows what the fuck is going on.
Nobody does, including us.
Yes.
I feel like it's so much easier to come up with red flags than green flags. Are there any other green flags you can think of that you want to hit on? Because we're approaching
Um,
2 hours.
yes. I say that's about it. I mean, good communication, taking their time to interview me, being thorough with their questions, presenting the work environment, what it looks like. It's very much they made it about me and see if it's a good fit for me. Like
Mhm.
that was such a great experience in itself. And then all the other things that came with it, with like safety and like the onboarding process and how organized that was.
Mhm.
So, and then like good teamwork as well.
Yeah.
That's so big. So, yeah, I'd say those are my green flags.
Overall, I mean, I think my green flags are again like interviewer body language and things like that. Like if you're interviewing with someone and they're calm, they have the luxury of being patient with you, like that
Mm-hmm.
manager was with you, like it kind of gives you a sense that like, oh, okay, things are under control enough everywhere else that like this person isn't being pulled in a million directions. So I'm not going to be expected to do 1,000 different things if I work here. And like if you are ever in like a group interview or like where they pull in other members of the team to talk about different aspects of the job, how they interact and like treat other people, I think says a lot about the work environment too. If they're respectful, if they ask the other team members for their opinions on things or like, how would you do this versus being like, oh, well, so and so's in charge of this and she handles all this stuff and like speaking for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that says a lot about the work environment too. But yeah, overall, benefits, salary, and willingness to be transparent about that in a job posting and scheduling. Yeah, like what level of flexibility is there?
Yeah.
But
Awesome. So, I guess on that
yes.
note, what's your happy fact?
My happy fact is I'm just happy with the way that our podcast has transformed over the last 5 months. I love that we started it right when you left your previous job, and now we've decided we're going to take a little break, close season one with you getting a job. I think it's just like a really nice story arc from a podcasting perspective. And it's just really kismet that it like worked out
Yeah.
that way. But I think my happy fact moving forward is that we are thinking about season two and what we want to do with that. And if we want to change up the format a little bit and do some interviews. But I think it's just, I don't know. My happy fact is that we're doing season two.
Yes. Season two. I'm excited.
Me too. And I'm also excited that we get a mini break. I mean, I love talking to you, obviously. We
Yeah.
talk a lot. But yeah, life is fucking life, man.
Well, the holidays are coming.
Yes, the holidays are coming. You just got a new job. Just a lot of changes are happening for both
It's
of
fall
us.
time,
It's fall
fall is
time.
approaching. Seasonal depression is real.
It is. But yeah, so we're going to take a mini break between season one and season two, just for the holidays and everything like that. And then we can plan out a bit more of like how we want to do season two. And I would like to get some of those episodes queued up when we come back
Yeah.
from our break so that we aren't recording and then trying to publish the same week. We could like stretch it out a little more. And
Yeah.
that'll give me something to do in my depression moments over the winter too. I can edit.
Yes, I would love to keep this hobby going because I love this relationship we have.
Yeah. You're my work wife.
You're my work wife. You're my
Unofficial work
unofficial
wife.
wife. Well, I hope you have a great rest of your evening. And here's to season 2.
Here's to season 2. Here's to your job.
All new changes.
All new
Stay
changes.
tuned.
Stay tuned.